So we're just going to start with some nice mobilising. So shoulder rolls, going backwards, single shoulder rolls. And as you do this, I want you to just do some sort of slightly weird things with your hands. So I'm doing my sea anemones, and then take the shoulder rolls forwards, something we rarely do. Let's pop that on there. Yeah, good boy. So I would like you with your hands, so keep going with this thing. You can walk around a little bit if you want to. I'd like you with your hands to get your wrists and your forearm nice and warm, because you're getting all the blood flow going through those areas. And then let's pop the hands onto the shoulders and take some single elbow circles, rolling backwards, alternating, and then coming forwards. So we're just trying to get some blood flow to the muscles around the ribs, the upper back, the neck, the shoulders. We were doing the hands. And let's come back to the hands actually as we do this. So reaching your rib cage from side to side. This will probably be my thumbnail. Me doing a weird thing when it processes the video. So going from side to side with your ribs, and actually if I do that a little bit more, I'm wanting you to shift your rib cage from side to side. Good, and then I'm going to turn sideways. Here's the one we normally do. You're shifting your rib cage back as you bring your arms forwards. You're shifting your rib cage forwards as you open up the arms, pushing back and opening up forwards. Slight bend in the knees here and then straightening the legs, but it's about shifting that rib cage forwards and backwards. Great, then let's interlace the hands. Circling the hands around at chest height, and you might notice as you do this, keeping the hips fairly still, that your rib cage goes in the opposite direction to your arm. So this is our bread making machine, and this is where we want to try and shift the rib cage in the opposite direction, but keep the hips fairly still if you can. So exactly as we've just done, we just took the ribs from side to side. So you take the ribs to one side, you take the hands to the other side. And let's just go from side to side. Hands to one side, ribs to the opposite side. One leg tends to bend, the other leg goes a little bit straighter. But don't worry too much about the legs. And then the same thing when we're going forwards and backwards with the ribs, arms go in the opposite direction. And there, and forwards and backwards. Forwards and backwards, and then try and get as big a circle as you can, and going around the other way. Great job. Okay, circling your hips, so keeping the feet nice and wide. Great big hula hoop circle. So a lot of the stuff to do with knees is things like squats and lunges. It's all fairly static and fairly on the same sort of plane, if you like. Maybe as sort of up and down motion, and it's thinking about the alignment. And so in the warm-up, I just wanted you to really get to all to the edges and the different areas of your hips, because we're going to be working the hips quite a lot, your knees and your ankles as well. Make sure you've got in both directions with those hips. And then let's bring our feet and knees together, bending your knees and having your fingertips touching your knees, and this time circle your knees around. And around in the other direction. So have a look down at your feet, keep your hands, your fingertips touching your knees so that you stay at the same height. Have a look down at your feet and look at the reaction when you take those knees in the biggest circle that you can. It's not a very big circle, but think of all those different angles, those different fibres that you're connecting with in your knees, and the effect that has on your ankles and your feet. Really important. And then let's go to one foot at a time. So first of all, we're going to do two variations of this. First of all, I'm really relaxed in my toes, and I'm just letting the toe roll over. It's getting quite a strong stretch on the top of my foot, changing direction, and I'm trying to let that ankle go around in as big a circle as it possibly can. Then I'm going to push down into the ball of my foot. So notice how I've transferred my weight over much more. And I'm going to keep my toes flat, rolling around the ball of my foot. Again, same movement with the ankle, but it feels quite different now. It's much stronger, a little bit more intense. Getting into all those corners, like I said. Let's change sides. Jack, would you mind going on your bed? Come on your bed. On your bed. There you go. Good boy. There you go. There's a good boy. You stay there. Great. So toes first. Just really relax. I'm not putting any weight through my foot. The stretching and the just scrunching over my toes. It can be a little bit uncomfortable. Just take it easy if it is, or if you've got pins in your toes, some of my clients have, or you know, any metal in your feet. And then changing the emphasis. So it's more of this is more of a massage around the ball of the foot. Good, both directions, getting that ankle going all the way around. Fantastic. Okay, here's one of our first things to do. There were 10 exercises on the clip that I looked at. And we're doing about 6 of them, maybe 6 or 7. And as I say, it's all stuff that we generally do in our Pilates classes anyway. I'm going to just turn sideways. You're going to stand on your weaker leg for the first movement. We're going to take 4 directions with the other leg, the moving leg. So standing up really nice and tall, flexing the foot of the moving leg. And the first movement is going to be flexion at the hip, which is just simply extending that leg forwards, keeping it really straight, keeping the foot really flexed, about 10 times. And as you probably know, I'm rubbish at counting with these sort of things. I was relying on being able to see my class members earlier, so I could tell how many we'd done, but about 10. So absolutely no change in that spine. When you, from the front, when you're bringing that leg back in, so it's next to your other leg, I'm not putting my weight on it each time, so I'm not having to shift over. But equally, both sides of my waist are staying absolutely the same. Both legs are beautifully straight. This is part of the, so we're taking the movement from the hip, using the muscles in the hip, but part of this whole class is to re-educate your knees if they're not very good at this, at being straight. So being nicely pulled up, so the muscles around the knees support them all the way through. Great, now let's take the leg behind. So we're going into extension at the hip. No change in that leg, no change in your torso. So there's no overarching, there's no collapsing, there's definitely no change in that lower back. You're going to start to feel some work on that standing leg, and that's good. That's what we want. So sweeping the leg back, hands on your hips, maybe hands on your torso, with the fingers spread, elbows out to the side, so that you're creating this sense of stillness, if you like, in your torso, your tissue box. Next movement, out to the side, same leg. So my standing leg is really starting to complain a little bit now. Out to the side, not too high, otherwise you will want to shift and shorten in that waist. Keeping both legs straight, keeping both feet facing forwards, nice and parallel. Ooh, about 10 of these, I reckon about another 3 more. One more exercise, one more movement to do with this leg in this pretty much the same position. So this is our abduction. So we're using the muscles in the hip to take the leg away from the central line of the body. Last one, the leg is going to be out to the side, slightly in front of your other leg. So I guess my heel is sort of level with my toes, and then I'm going to sweep it across my midline. So the focus is much more now on bringing my legs together, bringing my thighs together at the top. And as you can see, my foot's just slightly going past the other leg. It's not about the movement out to the side, it's about this crossing over that midline. There's my pubic bone, and hopefully you'll feel some nice work, connection in those inside thighs. Pelvic floor is going to be working a little bit. This is one of our 10 things to do every day. My standing leg is absolutely killing me now. I'm going to do 2 more. Ooh, and 1 more for luck, and have a little whew. Okay, good job. All on the other side. So really nice and upright with your whole torso. Feet are together. As you sweep that leg forwards, you just keep the foot flexed, you keep the leg beautifully straight, and you come back to perfect alignment. So there is friction, there's a slight friction on the floor as I come back. There's a friction with my underneath of my foot, my sock against the yoga mat, but I'm not lifting the hip in order to make that happen. Really nice and square. So as this was previously the standing leg, it probably feels quite a relief now to just be moving it around. Try not to swing the leg too much. Try and control the movement. About 10 of these, I reckon that's about 10 now. And then I'm going to take the leg behind me. Now I noticed earlier, because this was just the standing leg, and in the standing leg, because the standing leg is stabilising you, you're really firing up those buttocks. Hopefully, you might feel it somewhere else in your body, but hopefully our goal is to strengthen the buttocks and the hips. So now you might be very aware when you take this leg back, and I certainly am, that my buttocks are firing up to take the leg back, to swing the leg back, which is good. I didn't feel it so much on the other side because I hadn't sort of woken up those muscles, but now they're very awake. Again, about 10 of these, keeping hips and shoulders square. Jack, on your bed. On your bed. Go on your bed. Just one word from me and it's amazing. Come on your bed. On your bed. And then we're going out to the side. On your bed. Good boy. Good boy. There you go. Then we're going out to the side with that leg. Try and stay on your one leg. No sneaky little breaks like I just had. Taking the leg out to the side. So it's very tempting when you do this to want to turn out that leg. So that's me turning it out. So my knee and top of my foot facing up to the ceiling. Keep everything facing forwards. Trying not to shift, trying not to shorten. Keep your hands around your waist, maybe between your ribs and your hips. Check there's no change. About 10. And smiling. So this is good stamina building. This is good endurance work on that standing leg buttock. Okay, last one. I'm going to turn sideways. And then the leg is slightly in front, because if it's here, you haven't really got anywhere to go. So slightly in front of the standing leg, cross it over and out to the side. Cross it over and out to the side. Cross it over. It doesn't need to go high at the side at all. We've just done that movement. This is the crossing over past that midline. Feel your inside thighs really switching on. Keeping the foot flexed, keeping both legs nice and straight. Hopefully you're feeling the love, the Pilates love. 2 more. And that was 1 extra more. And oh, give those legs a bit of a shake. Okay, great. Hopefully that fired everything up in those buttocks. So we're going to continue with that movement, and this is called the ironing board. I want you to come back to your first standing leg, and you're going to again swing the leg forwards, but as you swing the leg forwards, and really make sure it's not too high, I want you to try and pitch back in your upper body. And then you come upright and everything is in its normal position. And then you take the leg behind you and you pitch forward slightly. So if there was a rod at the back of my body, from the top of my head down through my spine to that heel, that line would be straight all the way through. And actually, if I put my arm there, so by all means, if you need to have a little bit of support at the wall, the back of the chair if you've got one there, back of the sofa, kitchen worktop, wherever you're working, please do have a little bit of support, but just a tiny bit. So this is called the ironing board because the body stays absolutely straight. You're hinging over this hip. Legs are straight. So the movement, the focus, I'm going to stand on the same leg, but I'm turning the other way. My focus is here. Here's my hip hinge. This is the only bit that's actually changing. I'm opening up that angle there. It's perfectly straight there, and then I'm closing it in a little bit there. Nothing else is changing. Quite strong on the balance. Swap legs. Same thing, ironing board. I think it actually helps to glue your arm to the same side as the leg. It won't help with your coordination, but it helps to think about that ironing board shape. And in fact, I'm keeping my eye line where it is, so which means I'm tucking my chin in a little bit. My eye line should go up more to the ceiling in the same way it goes down a little bit as I pitch forwards. So everything from the top of the head over. So focus on that hip hinge. I'm going to go to the other side. You could even put your hand at the top of the little finger in that crease. Notice the crease. You don't really feel it until you go forwards with your upper body and the leg goes behind you. And it's not a big movement. If you try and go too low or too far, your ironing board will end up collapsing. You know, when you haven't quite got it in the thing, in the bracket or whatever it is. Okay, brilliant. This is where you need your chair, if you can. So it could be a chair, could be a stool, it could be a living room table, like a little side table. Something roughly at this height, if you can. Doesn't have to be, but ideally it is. If you haven't got anything, you could also just go to a point on the wall. That's absolutely fine as well. So coming back to your first standing leg. Let me put this over here a little bit. On your first standing leg, you're going to lift this knee, and everything now is nice and upright. So you're going to lift the knee, tap the toe onto the surface that you're using. I'm using the chair. The seat of the chair. Beautifully straight standing leg. Now we're not leaning back, we're really upright in the body. Opposite hand touches that knee, which you will naturally do. Then I'm going to take the leg down to the floor, straighten it. I'm coming through that straight line position we just did. Then I'm going into my ironing board position. But as I do the ironing board, this time I want to touch the seat. So I'm going to bend my standing leg a little bit. In fact, I'm going to bend it quite a lot so that I can just touch the fingertips here. If it was, so just watch that you don't overreach. And then you're coming upright through straight leg and then lifting and tapping the toe, touch the opposite knee. So there's no weight on the chair or whatever you're touching, no weight through your foot or your hand. This is just a light touch. And then a swing back. The focus here is the hip hinge. Lifting, swinging that leg back, hinging at the hip. The other focus, there's loads of things going on here actually. So the hip hinge, the standing leg, bending and fully straightening. Keeping that sense of the ironing board when you swing the leg back. So I don't want to see this. If I could see you, I don't want to see your upper back lowering but the leg staying where it is. You also don't need to overreach. It's just here. So you get this lovely hinge, and again, this should be hard work on that standing leg. So opposite hand to knee, which you will naturally do. Change your arms because you've changed the legs. This is opposite hand to the knee, the front leg. It's your opposition, it's your walking pattern that we've been working on quite a lot lately. Lift and swing, and lift and swing, and let's go to the other side. In fact, I'm going to stay facing this way. I'm not going to turn my chair around so that you can see a little bit more what's going on with the standing leg now. So we're lifting, we're really upright, just tapping the toes. So work out how close you need to be to whatever it is that you're using for this. Make sure it's not too high. No weight. Opposite hand to knee. Really nice and upright. As you lower that leg, you're straightening it. Then it swings back. There's the ironing board. I'm bending this knee so that I can just keep my body in that nice ironing board position without overreaching with that hand or that shoulder. I'm just lightly touching the top of the chair. Opposite hand to knee. Change the arms. Opposite hand to knee, opposite hand to knee, but actually you're bringing that one forwards. Straighten your standing leg, 100%. Pull that knee up. Bend your standing leg. Keep your alignment good. So I'm here, and as I swing back, that knee is going over my toes. My shoulders, my hips are square. To the front, straightening that standing leg, bending that standing leg, hips and shoulders square, no overreaching, no lifting up that hip at the back, because that's when the balance goes. Couple more if you can. Think about the same level of muscle activity as you had on the other side. Great job, and give those legs a bit of a shake. Brilliant. We are using the chair again. Hopefully if you've got a chair, it would be really helpful. And we're using the chair for another exercise. So far as knee exercises go, yeah, the leg swings, the four-way hip movements was part of the knee exercises. This is our next one. Single leg standing actually is another knee exercise. So we're staying on one leg, so that was a good one for the bending and straightening of that leg as well, making it a little bit harder. Now we're going to take some wide leg squats, but just to touch your bottom to the chair. So you're going to send your bottom back. In fact, let me show you from the front first. So my feet are at least as wide as the chair legs. Toes are going out slightly to the corner. I'm sending my bottom back. My focus is knees going over toes. From the front, when I'm square onto my monitor, I can see that I'm perfectly symmetrical. I'm not leaning over to one side or the other. There's no knee rolling in. From the side, go this way. I'm so far in front of the chair that I can send my bottom back, keep my knees above my ankles, just brush my hips, my bottom to touch the chair, and then come up. That's the point of this. So you want that weight through your heels. And if you overbalance and your weight's too far back, you're going to sit down, that's fine. So really think about trying to keep the knees above your ankles. Think about the shape of your back. It doesn't change, it doesn't collapse, you don't come too low. I'm just reaching my arms forwards, keeping the shoulders down. As you come up, push down through those feet. So if you haven't got a chair, you would just be here. Freestanding, taking the squat action, making sure, if you can see yourself in the mirror, that those knees don't come too far forwards. You might be able to have your knees here and your heels down. You can't see me in that one. I can't because of my Achilles. So the hinge happens here, my weight goes back. As you come up, push down through those heels, fire up those wonderful buttock muscles, which we will use again. Great, okay. We're going to go to the back of the chair Again, this doesn't need to be here if you don't need to. So we're going to start with just calf raises, heel raises. So nice and parallel. You could have the chair for a bit of support, but most of you don't need that, I'm pretty sure, because we do this all the time in class. So rising up and lowering. Again, those legs are straight. The focus is on the weight being across the balls of your feet. I kept these socks on today. I don't know whether you can see them very well, but there's a line from my big toe across to my little toe, across my metatarsals. I think it is the part of your foot that we're thinking about. When you're up at the top, think about the main point of pressure being between your big toe and your second toe. So where you'd wear your flip-flops. So rising up, not allowing those ankles to roll out, not allowing anything to collapse. Good, all the way up to the top. Brilliant. So, if you've got a chair, perfect, stand behind it. We're going to come into a hamstring stretch, and it's basically a wide leg hip hinge, but you need to be a little bit back away from the chair. You can also do this against a wall. So if you've just got some wardrobes or a wall or something, you could reach forwards and just put your hands on the wall. The idea is to have your feet quite wide and keep your feet underneath your hips. Let's just take the arms up to the ceiling, so the arms are up by your ears, and then you're hinging forwards, and you might find yourself too close to the chair, in which case move away a little bit. Hinging forwards until you get your hands on the chair or on the wall or the wardrobes or whatever, and then basically you're getting a wonderful hamstring stretch. And as you take your chest down more, you're getting a stretch across the front of your chest. And then to come out of this position, bend the knees, tuck the pelvis under, and just take a little roll up. It's like a mini roll up. If you want to, add on to this, taking the arms up to the ceiling and taking a rise all the way up. And now as you hinge forwards, slowly lower your heels into that nice wide-legged hamstring stretch. But you've got your hands on the chair. This would also work on the kitchen worktop or on the windowsill. And if you can't, for whatever reason, do this today, or it doesn't feel right, have a little go at some other time. It's a wonderful stretch, actually. So stretching across the chest, make sure you're back. So no rounded backs. If you need to be a little bit higher because of those hamstrings, then maybe just lift your chest up here, so your spine is in its natural curves. But if you can, lower down as much as possible, and then let's just take ear towards the inside of your arm, keeping your hips fairly still. So you're getting a nice stretch down the side seam of your back. Great, and then to come out of it, bending the knees, tucking the pelvis under, rolling up all the way. Good job. Okay, so you might again want the chair as a bit of support for this next one, but I'm going to take my chair out of the way. We're doing some lunges. So, as I said, squats, lunges, we're going to be doing some bridges later, calf raises, all stuff we do regularly, but all really good for actually keeping your knees fit and healthy and happy. So lunges, static lunges. Lunges are probably one of the most difficult things we do, and when you've got bad knees, not so great knees, it's probably one of the most uncomfortable things to do, but worthwhile, doing well, training it, practicing it. So I'm going to go sideways. We're going to do static lunges. I was stepping in and out of them, but it's too much to add on to everything else that's going on. So legs quite far apart, front to back, your body in the middle, your weight in the middle, that back heel off, and start with both legs nice and straight. From the front, I've taken my back leg out slightly wider than my hips, but my front position as well, my shoulders and my hips are square to my front. My feet are facing forwards. That back heel has a tendency to drop in and down, but then look what happens to my hips and the shoulder. Everything opens up there. So get that back heel up and really square and parallel. From there, wherever you are, so be as wide as you can, and then the most advanced version of this is to just sink down and just brush that knee to the mat and then fully straighten. So we're aiming ideally for two 90-degree angles. But if that isn't going to work for you, it's absolutely no problem at all. Just bend halfway. Keep your chest upright, keep your spine upright, bend halfway or bend as much as you can, but bend both knees equally. This is the really key thing. So about 10 of these. So there's a lot of factors to whether being able to do this well. It's your toes, it's your ankles, it's the hips. Strengthen your thighs. The muscle memory around your knees. Some people, if they haven't for a long time really properly straightened their legs, the muscles forget how to do it. So that's what we're trying to train. Make sure, so you can see that I'm not going forwards and backwards with my body. That's what I see quite a lot in class. Really try and go straight down and straight up. Straight down and straight up. Ooh, I'm going to swap over legs. I'm going to stay facing the same way. In fact, I'm going to face forwards for this next set. So the leg is nicely behind me. So your test, if you wanted to set yourself up well, would be to kneel down and make sure that this front knee is above your ankle, curling your toes under on the back leg, and then you're straightening. And it's quite hard work. By all means, use the chair for balance, use the wall for balance, use something if you need to, but just a light fingertip touch there. So remember, all the way down might not be suitable for you. You might need to only go halfway. You might only be able to slightly release the knees, but try and fully straighten them, both legs, including that back leg. So you haven't got to get that back heel down. That would be, for me, that would be physically impossible anyway. Well, actually I can just about do it, but I tend to lift that heel up a little bit more. It helps me come down into my lunge position. Hips and shoulders totally square to your front. Stretching out my mat. A nice handy little wall there for when I'm overbalancing. So this is a front to back static lunge, if you like. So quite a regular movement pattern. And as I said, we're in this sort of tram lines, if you like. So life isn't always in the tram lines. So we're just going to take the front leg out now and more of a diagonal. So I'm going to stay facing forwards. Imagine a clock face. So imagine you've got 12 o'clock in front of you. And we're going to take the front foot out to 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock. It doesn't matter which way you go. But keep your body and your knees and your feet all facing forwards, all facing 12 o'clock. But take the leg out on a diagonal. So you come out to here. Find your middle space again with your weight. The yoga mat's getting all caught up. So we're not going to that corner. If I turned everything towards that corner, it's the same as what we've just done. I'm just on a slightly jaunty angle. No, we want to be facing forwards, shoulders and hips, feet, knees, and then we're bending. And it's weird. And probably haven't done this before, but think about all those different muscles and those different areas that you're getting into in the knee, the ankle, the hip. So again, brush the back knee to the mat if you can, but otherwise just bend as much as you can. Make sure everything is square. Brilliant. Push the feet back, come back together. This mat's driving me crazy. And let's go out to the other side. So on that diagonal, but everything's still facing forwards, get that back heel up, have your weight in the middle, and then we're dropping down. So from the side, So here's my new 12 o'clock. I'm going out to this way. I'm still trying to do the 90 degrees. It's probably a little bit less than 90 degrees because of the jaunty angle of the legs. Yeah, it's almost a bit too wide if you're actually at 90. But again, it's the alignment. Knees over toes. But just on that slight corner, on the edge. Dropping down and straightening those legs. Ooh, a couple more if you can. Well done, and try and push back. Good job. Brilliant. Okay, we don't need the chair anymore. I'm going to get the chair completely out. So standing at the end of your mat with your feet hip width apart. No, not hip width apart, sorry. Mat width apart. If you haven't got a yoga mat, imagine you have one. So feet are wide, insteps nice and parallel. We're going to take a roll down. We're going to walk out to the plank. Nice straight line in the body. We're going to keep our hands where they are. Walk our feet into our hands and roll up, and then reverse the movement. So here we go. So taking your roll down first, chin onto your chest, draw that belly button in, let those arms hang. Soften your knees just as soon as you need to, so that might be pretty much straight away. Just pause here a moment, nod your head, shake your head, soft knees, just let that back release all the way down to the floor. Now walking your hands out, try and take 4 steps to get your hands in the right position. So 4 walks with your hands. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, hands are level, hands are underneath the shoulders, the legs stay fairly straight, you are in the plank. Your goal now is to bring your feet in towards your hands. So lift your hips up. You can bend your legs straight away, or if you're feeling a bit more flexible and you want to try it the other way, keep your legs straight for as long as possible. Get your big toes to touch your wrists. Make sure the head is relaxed, knees are bent when you finally get into that position, and then roll up through the spine. Unravelling, and then roll back down. All the way down. Legs are bent, hands nice and flat. Now we're walking the feet back into the plank. Again, take about 4 steps and then drop those hips. Feel nice and strong in that position. Beautifully straight legs, head in line, shoulder blades drawn down in your back towards your hips. Now lifting your hips up, walk your hands back to your feet. If you can, keep the legs straight all the way. There's another hamstring stretch. Otherwise, just bend your knees as soon as you need to and roll up through the spine. We're going 2 more times. Rolling down. Unravelling through the spine. Soft knees as soon as you need to. Try and walk out with the other hand first. 1, 2. Hand underneath the shoulder, other hand level with the first hand, holding that plank position. Are you lifting up out of the floor as much as you can? Now lift your hips. See if you can keep your legs straight for as long as possible. Toes touching those wrists. And then soften the knees. Roll up through the spine. And 1 more. Chin onto your chest. Rounding all the way down. Soft knees. Hands down. Walking the feet out, last plank position, and then lower both knees with control at the same time to come down onto all 4s. Just going to turn my heater off. Forgot that I put that on, it's a bit like a sauna in here. Okay, great. Let's come down to the floor, onto your backs. So onto your backs in the base position for bridges. So feet and knees hip width apart, maybe hold onto the backs of your knees, round your spine all the way down. Settle yourself on your mat for a moment. I'm just going to take my heels out of my socks just so I've got a bit more grip there. Okay, so from here, this is another knee exercise, believe it or not, the bridge. Because again, we're working the back line of the body, we're strengthening the backs of the knees, the hips, it's all connected and it's all part of the same thing. So pushing down through your feet, unweight your hips, and then switching on, activating those buttocks as you lift all the way up to the top of your bridge, holding it there. Using your hands, check your ribs, check that the ribs aren't flaring. Make sure they're drawing down to meet your hip bones at the front of the body, like there's a rod between your spare floating ribs and those hip bones. Use your hands, find your gluteal fold, find that smile of your bottom, the crease of your bottom, poke it a little bit and then switch those muscles on, so it's like you're trying to draw your sit bones towards each other, and when you switch those muscles on, your hips will open up a little bit more at the front, and that's what we want. Think about sending your knees over your toes and away from your head. Hold that position up as high as you can. Make sure the head and shoulders, neck are nice and relaxed. And let's take 10 switches on and switches off of your gluteal fold. Not sure that was quite right English, but I think you know what I mean. So switching on and switching off, trying to get that front of the hips opened up as much as possible. And then let's take the arms up and over when you've done that. Leave the arms on the floor behind your head. Imagine you're hanging onto a branch. Let's reverse peel down through that spine. Once your pelvis is down, your hips are down, relax the buttocks, roll out to neutral, bring the arms up and over. Let's do 3 more of those. Push down through the feet, switch the glutes on, lift the hips up as high as you can, arms up and over, leave the arms there, reverse peel down. Remember to get those ribs down first. Roll down through every single vertebrae, arms up and over, 2 more. So breath out, so we're going up in a straight line, pushing down through those feet. Breath out, breath in as you take your arms up and over. Breath out as you come down. Breath in to return the arms. Last one, here we go. Breath out. Get those hips up as high as you can. Arms up and over, breath in. Make sure the back of the head and neck is really relaxed. Breath out. Roll back down through the spine. Come to a nice neutral. Breath in to bring the arms back over. Wonderful. Okay, a little bit of footwork now. So just bend the leg that's closest to the monitor, bend it in, just hold on to the back of the knee and have it quite nice and relaxed. Check that your pelvis is still in neutral. And then you're just going to lift the foot up so that you can see it with your head still on the floor, collarbone nice and open. You've lowered your eye line a little bit. And then we're going to take some great big circles of your foot from the ankle. So we're circling all the way round. If I just turn my foot towards the camera a little bit more. So as I'm taking my toes away from me, I'm pointing my toes. As I'm lifting them up and flexing the foot, I'm really spreading the toes apart. 4 or 5 in each direction. So you should be relatively comfortable and be able to keep the rest of the leg absolutely still. Just take the biggest circle you can from that ankle all the way round. Great, and then we're going to do something called cherry picking. So you're going to flex your foot. You're going to extend the foot at the ankle, but sort of leave your toes behind, if you like. And then when you've extended the ankle as much as you can, and your toes are still sticking up, point your toes on the end. And now keep that point and pluck some cherries, pick some cherries, keep that scrunch and bring the foot back, bring your toes back, and then extend again. It's a bit like a Mexican wave through your foot. Try and keep the heel pretty much where it is. It's quite strong. You're going to feel this all underneath the soles of your feet. Just using all those muscles. There's so many muscles in the foot, so many bones in the foot, and generally we pretty much ignore our feet. It's actually nice to get a little bit more activation of those muscles and building some endurance in them. Now slide the leg that's bent along the floor, and if you can, straighten that top leg up towards the ceiling. It really doesn't matter if it has to be a little bit further away, but do get a straight leg. Now flexing and pointing the foot, lead with your toes. Toes come over first, then you flex the foot, then you extend the ankle again like we just did and point the toes. Toes lead and flex. Ooh, and toes are last to point over. Toes and flex, and it's very strong all down your shin. Ooh. And release to the other side. So, drawing the other knee in, bending both legs in again. Lifting the foot just so that you can comfortably see it, and then we're starting off with our circles all the way around. 4 or 5, really nice and slowly. Spreading the toes apart, really pointing those toes. It's almost like your toes, that line from your big toe joint to your little toe joint across your metatarsals, it's like separate to the rest of your foot. Try and think of it as an extra part. In the same way you can sort of bend your wrist and the whole arm doesn't go. Or bend your, I guess it's bending your hand more there, your fingers over. Both directions. Keep the ankle really still. Brilliant. And then going forwards. Leave the toes till last. Sort of stick your big toe up to the ceiling and then point, and then really feel that scrunch in your, ooh, that might be a little bit crampy. As you pull back, stay in the scrunch. Extend the ankle, toes are over. Pluck, pick the cherries. This side for me today is much more crampy. It was alright earlier, but so if you do get cramp in the foot, best thing to do is just massage it. Get your thumb in there, have a bit of a roll around. Great. Let's stretch the one leg along the floor, straighten that leg up to the ceiling. It really doesn't matter if it's not at 90 degrees, but do try and lock the knee out. So we're stretching all around the back of the knee, through the calf, pointing those toes, thinking about that beautiful alignment, that straight alignment. So if I go here, there's no curly feet going on. It's beautifully straight. My inside of my foot is straight. Knee is straight. The ankle is straight. It's quite hard work down your shins as well, the front of your shins. All of these muscles are there, and they're all there. Their jobs are to support the, what are we doing? I can't remember. Oh yeah, we've got 2 straight legs. To support the knee and the whole of the leg. Yeah. Great. Okay, give those legs a bit of a shake. Brilliant. We are coming into some abdominal work. So what I'd like you to try and focus on here is straightening those legs again and pointing the feet. So let's take a single leg stretch. So coming up, so this is the sort of cheating version, but I don't mind if you hang on to your knee for dear life. Take the leg that's closest to the camera, extend the other leg away. Ideally, this shin that you're pulling in is parallel to the floor, and you're really pulling that knee in towards your shoulder. I'm not in a neutral lower back. My lower back is tucked under. Both feet are roughly at the same height. Both feet are beautifully pointed. Hanging on there so that I can lift my head and shoulders up. So this is the cheating version, hanging on for dear life here. If you were to be doing a classical mat Pilates class, you would have a light touch, reaching down towards that ankle, hand on top, elbows out to side, using your muscles to pull the leg in. Let's swap sides. See how it feels on the other side. Hold it here. Drawing this knee in. So it's not out here, it's in towards your shoulder. I'm using my leg to help me stay up. My upper body stays nice and still. This shin is parallel, legs are beautifully straight, feet, the one leg is beautifully straight, the other leg is really bent in. Feet are beautifully pointed, nice and straight. Elbows out to the side, and again, if you want to make it much harder, much more classical Pilates based, and also being a neutral pelvis, absolutely brilliant. Okay, now let's just swap and swap and swap. So I'm pulling that knee in to help me stay up. It's tough, it's really tough on the head and neck, but my head is above my shoulders. It's not hanging back. That's so much harder. Couple more if you can. Nice breath out. Be accurate. Beautifully straighten that leg. Lock out the knee. Pull the thigh up. And have a little rest down. Ooh, cross your ankles over. Let that head roll from side to side. Let's take some double leg stretch, but let's start with the head down. You can lift the head up in a moment if you want to, but let's just focus on the legs here. So it's like a frog press to start with. So legs are turned out, knees are out to the side, flexing the feet, heels are together, and then you're going to straighten the legs, keep the heels together, legs are turned out like I said, and then you're pointing the feet on the end. And then again, curl those toes back, flex the feet, come into your frog press. So knees are coming in towards your shoulders, lower back probably tucked under. Keep it tucked under when you extend the legs. If you feel like your lower back is going to arch and it makes your lower back feel vulnerable, don't do this one. Maybe a little bit too much. Stretching away and coming back in. So that's the double leg stretch leg position. If you can, now lift your head and shoulders up. We can't hang on to our knees so much. The movement is to take the arms up, circle them round and come back into the knees. The upper body stays still. About 5 of these if you can. And circling round. You could keep your head down on the floor. As you take your legs up, maybe take the arms back more this time. This time take the legs more up to the ceiling, higher up towards the ceiling. So the arms are going back in this version, the legs are going up. With this one, legs are going out more, arms are going up. If you take your arms back, you'll want to drop that head back. 2 more. And trying to get those feet moving, straightening those legs, pushing the backs of the knees together, and have a little relax. Oh my gosh, where does the time go on these classes? Someone said this morning in class that it's the fastest hour of the week. And it's so true. I did have crisscross to go, but I'm going to let you off of that tonight. So, let's lie on our sides for another knee exercise, believe it or not, which is the clams. So lying in a nice straight line, with your legs bent, your heels are going to be in line with your hips, in line with the rest of your spine, head resting on that underneath arm. Get your waist lifted. So this is me just collapsed. This is me lifted. Collapsed, lifted. Look what happens to the hips. Collapsed. The hips aren't stacked on top of anymore. The spine is twisted. That's a nice straight spine. And that then connects in my centre. From here, we're just lifting that top knee. And I'm actively squeezing my heels together. We're making sure that that top hip
doesn't roll back, doesn't move at all. Squeeze your heels together. And lift the knee and lower. Might have to let Jack out. Keep going if you can. So lifting the knee, lowering it with a little bit of resistance as well. So what we're working here, again, we're working the hip, the buttock muscles. Specifically your gluteus medius, which is responsible for the alignment and tracking of your knee and your thigh, especially when you're doing things like lunges. So really important muscle to be working. Good. Then let's lift that leg up, and now we're just mobilising in the hip joint. You're dropping the knee down, touch knee to knee, lifting the knee up, touch foot to foot. Knee down, foot up, really important. And then swap. Knee down, foot up. Knee up, foot down is the opposite. Again, keep that waist lifted. Check with your spare hand. Have you let that collapse? You're really going to need it for the next exercise. One more thing to do here. So we're straightening the top leg. We're straightening the underneath leg. Beautifully straight legs, beautifully pointed feet, in steps nice and parallel. Take your spare arm and just reach it above your head in line with your ear if you can. So this is quite tough on its own just to stay here. Lightly just lift your head off of that underneath arm so that your ear is just brushing that arm. And then the movement is to just switch the legs, swim the legs from the hips, trying to stay balanced and still. It's tough, but if you keep that waist lifted, if you keep your ribcage connected, keeping the legs beautifully straight, all of that work that we've done so far in those hips, the correct muscles should be firing up. Woo! And relax. Brilliant. Roll over onto the other side. Wonderful straight line with this top arm and your spine. Line it up at the back of the mat if you want to, and then get your heels in line with that straight line. And then these are just stacked one on top of each other. Waist collapsed, waist lifted, collapsed, lifted, collapsed, lifted, stay connected in at the front. And then we're squeezing the heels together to lift that knee and lower. So my feet are completely relaxed, both feet are relaxed. I'm not trying to point my feet here. I'm just trying to create a bit of extra tension in the back line of the body by actively pushing the heels together. And also lowering the knee, which I'm not doing very well, I'm not really concentrating on it, but I should be. Lowering the knee with resistance. So keep those buttock muscles fired up all the way down. Don't just let the knee drop and collapse. So working hard all the way through on both parts of the movement. Top shoulder down away from your ears. Keep that waist lifted, keep the rib cage connected to the hips. Wonderful. We're lifting the leg up. You're dropping the knee down. This is the most important movement. Really internally rotate that thigh. Keep the hip absolutely still. Lift the knee up. Dropping down and there. So we're sort of stirring the pot of your pelvis, if you like, with your thigh bone. So it's actually more like a pestle and mortar. That's my new analogy for this one. So, yes. Drop that knee down, foot up, but keep the hip absolutely still. So if your hip starts to roll around as well, too much joining in, we want to isolate that muscle. Not muscles, there's loads of muscles all going on there. We want to make the thigh bone do the work or do the movement without the pelvis joining in. Great, extend that top leg, extending the underneath leg. Whoopsie, one side will be easier for balancing than the other. Extend the arm up overhead, slightly just release the pressure of your ear resting on that underneath hand. Legs beautifully straight, set your torso. The more I lift my waist away and pull it in, the more I connect my ribs to my hips, and then just think about moving those legs from the hips. Not a very big movement, but keep them really nice and straight. The easier it is, but it's not easy. Great job, and have a relax. Well done. Sitting yourselves up. Just to finish off, if you've got time, stay with me. If you have to go, that's absolutely fine. I would just like you to try and have a little explore, a bit of a roll around on the floor. That's my first rhyme of the class. Just thinking about your knees. So maybe coming back to here, so your bottom is back, hips on your heels, and you're just having that roll around across your shins. Just noticing how does it feel. Maybe leaning back, sitting back onto your hip, coming up onto your knees again, going over to the other side. Maybe coming into a Z sit. So you're here, one leg in front, and then just rolling round to the other side. Z sit can quite easily transfer into a nice kneeling up position. And then over to the other side. Just exploring, maybe kneeling up and then rolling over that knee and that thigh and that hip, and that all feels quite nice for me. So I'm bending the other leg, straightening out the back leg a little bit, focusing on rolling over that front knee. Good, and then coming onto all fours. So feel free to just explore all of this stuff in your own time, but the best time is really when you're nice and warm at the beginning of class. So curling those toes under, lifting the hips up, let's just walk through those feet, stretching out those calves. And then maybe just take a little crossing over of the legs. So if you take this into a bear walk, it becomes a sexy bear. Crossing over, stretching the arms forwards, and it feels really nice all down the side seam of your body. And then finishing off, walk those feet in to your hands. Can you keep those legs straight for as long as possible? Don't worry if you need to bend the knees, do so if you need to. Relax the head and then roll up strongly through the spine. Woo. Sorting out clothing and hair. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again soon.